Hi, I'm Michele Thomas, and I'm going to talk about my grandfather, who was very well known in Union City. His name was George Showers. He had a nickname of Bummy Showers. He was born in Little Cooley area on Townville Road, and his mother was Sarah Wilson, and his father was Edward Showers. Sarah Wilson was related to Hugh Wilson, who was one of the original founders of Union Township. When he was 14, he had 4 brothers and 1 sister, and when he was 14, all his family worked. They all helped the household. So back then they didn't have labor laws. While he was working at a basket factory, they made baskets for the grape industry, and that was in Union City on High Street. And him and another person were changing a belt on one of the saws, and he got caught in the belt and it ripped him up around to the conveyor, and when he landed it had ripped his arms off. And he didn't die, of course, or we wouldn't have a story. The people that he worked with took him right home and called the doctors in. Dr. Sherwood and a couple other doctors came, and they helped him. They stitched him up, and they had to remove one arm. I guess that's a little gruesome, but that's what happened to him, and he was only 14 years old. And when he was on the table, he was talking to them and telling them what happened. He didn't lose consciousness, and he was very brave, but he did have one point where he was in so much pain, he said, "I'm going to die." And the doctor said, "I don't want to hear that kind of talk." And he had always told us about that whenever we lived with him when I was young, so he would try to make us tough because he was tough. Well, after the accident, he wasn't coddled by his family. His mother and his father expected him to just recover and do what he could do, and he always did what he could do for himself. What he did was he rigged up a hook system to get his clothes on. He would keep suspenders on his pants and hang them. He would use his shoulder and his chin to pull the suspenders up over his shoulders, and he could do everything except button his own shirt. He couldn't tie his own shoes, so he would usually wear moccasin type of shoes. Well, when he was like 19, he decided he wanted to still ride a bike, and he rigged up a bicycle, and it's actually here in the museum. Well, his bike it's just amazing to me that he could ride a bike. There's a picture of my mom on that bike with him. In 1911, he built his own house, and he hired people to do the labor, but he could actually hammer nails with his mouth. He would actually use a hammer to hammer the nails. And he hired out a lot of the local area people, like Catholic Lumber, a lot of really well-known people. I have a journal with all that information in it. And he only spent it was at 62 Atlantic Street. He only spent $680 to build that house. So it's pretty amazing. There's an article, and that'll be scanned. It'll show a picture of him with his gun, and the person that did the interview with him asked him about how his hardships, and he said, why sweat it? He didn't say that word, but something else similar to that. Why sweat it? Because there's nothing you do to change it, and you just make do with how you can. He could even saw wood, because he fixed a boot to a buck saw and made it so it would always be able to be used, and he would use that. He always was inventive in finding ways to do a task any way he could do it. Well, he was so well known in Union City. Every time I went downtown with him, I would always notice people said hi to him and were real friendly to him. And he didn't take any guff, though, too. One time somebody did try to rob him, and he kicked their legs out from under them and taught them a lesson. So he actually was really well known. And even after I grew up in my 30s, I've actually had people come up to me when they found out he was my grandfather and tell me little stories about him.